I don't know whether to post this on r/psytrance or r/LSD, so I'll post it on both, hoping to get some advice on etiquette and tips for GOA parties and to share my LSD trips. I don't recommend or discourage taking LSD for the first time at a GOA party. I am merely sharing my experience. Do your research and make your own educated decisions. This weekend, me and my friends went to a long-anticipated small niche GOA festival on the beach of Den Haag, Netherlands. It was our first time rolling LSD, but not our first time using psychedelics. We have experience with psilocybin, Pitocin, MDMA, salvia, THC, and alcohol. We grow shrooms ourselves as well. The festival was a small 30x30 meter fence venue on the beach. It was beautifully decorated and the people were terrific. The party started at 8 p.m. and ended at 4 a.m. I am used to techno raves that last upwards in 8 in the morning, so I was a bit worried that the party was too short. This would later turn out to not be the case. We took our bloaters around 9:30 after exploring the venue and getting to know the crowd. After almost losing our bloaters in the wind, which is a whole story in and of itself, we put them under our tongues and held them there for about 30 minutes. Once the body high started to come in, we started dancing. Not long after we hit the dance floor, or sand, we started to notice fractals in our vision similar to what we saw with Pitocin for HO Met. This is where things started to speed up. Around this time was a pretty sudden shift in my mental state, as if I'd become a new, fresh, clean slate. My friends and I almost completely forgot where we were and, more importantly, why. This turned out to be very frightening and was something we battled with the entire trip. It felt as though someone dropped us off in a new dimension and told us to find a way to survive. The hallucinations were absolutely overwhelming. It was like we were on a completely different planet. The sand turned into faces and hands emerged from out of the ground, holding onto people's feet as they walked around. Whilst dancing, someone in the crowd pointed at the ground, presumably to show someone something. I looked over at where he pointed and a giant snake slithered over the ground and through my feet, after which it disappeared in the crowd. After dancing for a little while, the sun had set and we went to sit down to take a rest. After talking and discussing for a while about where we were and what we were supposed to do, eventually we stood up. We decided we would try to get some water, but we quickly noticed this would be a bigger challenge than we anticipated. Our minds didn't work like they were supposed to. Simple tasks became impossible to complete, and planning our trip to the toilet felt like an impossible feat. The toilets in which we could refill our bottles were inside the beach bar that the festival was built around. This meant we would have to somehow go inside the busy bar and figure out how to get the toilet and pay for entry. The problem was that we were almost completely unable to communicate using normal language. All of our communication inside our group went through abstract concepts and felt like telepathy, so communicating properly with people outside the group felt impossible. After what felt like 20 minutes of planning, which turned out to be really 4 minutes, we decided that me and a friend of mine would embark on a trip to the toilets. We walked into the brightly lit bar and we quickly found ourselves in the middle of a room full of people. It was very overwhelming. The room was completely different from when we did our exploration before taking the LSD. The walls were morphing, the table legs had turned into literal arms and legs, and the faces of people inside turned into animals and monsters. After a couple of attempts of going in and out of the room, we finally fully committed and managed to find the entrance to the toilet. We tried to pay for the toilet, passport out, but the lady just let us through without. This was a big step for us to get comfortable in a new state of existence. After this act of kindness, the people felt and looked way less scary. After getting the water, we went back to the group and started planning what to do next. At this point, we checked the time, thinking we were already a couple of hours in. This turned out to not be the case, as it was only a little over an hour since ingestion. Our sense of time was completely out of whack. It was obvious to us that the party lasted until 4, which was more than enough. One of the things I brought with me was a set of light poi. I had only been practicing for a week, so it wasn't very good, and because my mind was all whack, I expected to not be able to use them, but I was pleasantly surprised when I was able to control the poi way better than when I was sober. I was able to really feel and predict the flow of poi, and I had full control over my arms independently. Unlike muscle memory, I had full control over both my arms, as if dancing with poi was one of the most freeing feelings I ever felt. With about 2 hours left at the party, we finally started to understand where we were and how the crowd worked, and what our place and goal was. It felt like we were characters in a movie overcoming an obstacle, like we had a mini-life, born into this alien world and trying to find our place. We had moments of pure euphoria and utter hell. It was an adventure like no other. The come down was pleasant, but very, very long. We had to go back to the train station, but because the trains only drove later and because we didn't really understand how they worked because of the LSD, we decided to walk. We walked for 2 hours, which was about 9 kilometers. Den Haag is already one of the prettiest cities in Netherlands, but because of the LSD, we were able to see details we would never have noticed or appreciated otherwise. It was now 11 hours after the ingestion, and shit, was it still melting? I had no idea this stuff lasted this long. I knew LSD trips take long, but we at least thought it would be much less after 11 hours, but the visuals and body load were still very heavy. I don't know if this is normal. It might be because the extra step 1P LSD takes to turn into LSD. About halfway into our train ride, we heard a girl behind us say, "Where the fuck did you guys go?" She overheard our conversation, debrief, and came to sit with us. I'm usually a very social and friendly person and totally not scared of interaction, but this time I was scared out of my mind when she came to sit with us. We explained to her that we were coming down from an LSD trip and she was very curious. She works at a coffee shop, a Dutch weed shop, not a Starbucks, and really likes psychedelics but has never done LSD because of its kinda understandable bad rap. After the 2-hour train ride, we were finally home, but to our surprise, 13 hours later, we were still tripping. It had definitely become a lot less and we were able to think a lot more clearly, but we were still seeing both open and closed-eyed visuals. Luckily, I had no problem falling asleep, and after waking up 5 hours later, the trip was finally over. Notes and questions. It was very hard to get comfortable in the crowd. This was partly because most of the crowd was a lot older than us, causing us to feel out of place. And a significant part of people used other drugs like MDMA and speed or drank alcohol, which for some reason felt scary to us. Is this something you can get used to eventually? Anytime I trip, other than with shrooms, analogs, and LSD, there is a divine descending melody tone in the background. It's always the same, and one of my friends hears the same thing. Is this a common occurrence? Similar to the point above, there was also an awful smell. And anytime I would smell it, a wave of pure fear would go through me. This was my main problem, discomfort with LSD. It kind of smelled like cigarette smoke, ash, but a little more sweet and leathery herbal. It didn't smell like weed, and I didn't only smell it in the dance floor. I also smelled it when we were walking through the dunes and in the city, with the same wave of fear following it. Once again, is this a common hallucination, and is there something I can do about it? This was a very long post, and if you read it, I'm impressed. I wrote this to store my experience somewhere I can remember it. So I can remember it better and hopefully get answers to the questions under notes and questions. TLDR, took 190 milligrams of 1P LSD at a beach party, and it took us to an alien world. It was one of the most scariest, but also the most beautiful and impressive things that I have ever experienced. I also asked a couple of questions under the notes and questions paragraph for people that have experience. So this portion of the video, I'm not exactly sure what to say, but I feel like there's something that needs to be said, or I want to talk a bit about the story. This is it definitely is the first time or the first story I've done with something that involves with like drugs and LSD and stuff. One of my inspirations for this video is Vivek. He's a really awesome channel. If you ever see this, thank you for inspiring me, and I do think I want to narrate stories, like trip reports and stuff like that. Maybe, hopefully, one day I'll get to collaborate with him. So yeah, I probably mispronounced or misused in some sort of way the terminologies or like dosage numbers, because I'm very new to like narrating this type of stuff, and I find it really interesting. So yeah, that's all. Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed today's story. Thank you so much for listening. Huge thanks to the Redditor MCCVargues for granting me permission to narrate the story. I sincerely appreciate it. It was very interesting, and yeah. So once more, I hope you guys enjoyed today's story, and don't forget to sit back, relax, and indulge in fear.